It is the 5RM Breakfast Show with thanks to Rosenthal Automotive. Chris Mueller in the chair this morning. It's time to find out more about Community Living Australia. So I welcome Chief Executive of Community Living Australia, Mark Kulinski, joins me on the line this morning. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning, Chris. Thank you.
Now, we will be having chats over the next year to explain a little bit about the NDIS. So let's kick off with a brief explanation, Mark, of Community Living Australia, what it is and what you do.
Well, Community Living Australia is a local not-for-profit provider that has many years of experience. In fact, over 30 years' experience as class and 30 years' experience of community lifestyles. We merged a couple of years ago. We provide support services to people with disabilities and their families for both children and adults. We support over 500 people living with disabilities across the state, mainly focusing on the southern region, including here in the Riverland.
So why are you here to speak with us today? I assume you're going to demystify some of this NDIS stuff for us.
Yes, absolutely. It's the National Disability Insurance Scheme is a brand new scheme of how people receive funding to get services, and we've heard a lot of concern from our families and clients, people with disabilities that we support, about not really understanding what it means for them and how they can maximise the system to get the supports they really need to have a good life.
So what is the NDIS?
So the National Disability Insurance Scheme is basically it's the biggest social reform since the introduction of Medicare. And it in a nutshell, it gives people with disability more choice and control over the services and supports that they receive to live their life. And I guess in the past, basically, state government would determine, okay, this is the best way to get support, and it was stipulated by the state government in terms of how much money people get, how the supports that they get, and where they could purchase it from. So services went out to tender. So the person with disability had a little say in terms of where they bought services and the types of services they could have. So this is a new way of, I guess, empowering people with disability to say, well, this is the type of service I want, and this is who I want to deliver it and when.
How many people will it affect?
So it's huge across Australia. So we're talking around, by the end of 2020, when the full scheme is rolled out, we're talking around 460,000 people with disabilities getting support under the scheme, and that's equates to about $22 billion per year to achieve that. Now, I can break that down a little bit further in terms of South Australia. It comes to around 32,000 people that'll be joining the scheme, and equates to $1.5 billion. So that's really doubling the budget in terms of disability support in South Australia. To be specific to the Riverland and the Murray-Mallee region, that'll account for around 1,600 people receiving support.
So, Mark, why is it that the industry is expanding so much? We're seeing that that's obviously involving a lot of people. Why is it expanding so much, and is it necessary?
Absolutely. So in 2010, I think it was under the Rudd government, the Productivity Commission was asked to do some research into the inefficiencies in the disability sector and funding for the disability sector. And so basically they found out that many people with disabilities weren't receiving any support, and some people were receiving inadequate support. So something had to be done. So basically the scheme was introduced. We need a national scheme to have consistency. So there's rationale in terms of how much support people can get and how much money is allocated to them so they can choose where they purchase it from.
So it's being rolled out in stages. So for our region, for the Riverland and the Murray-Mallee region, what are we looking at? When's this going to be rolled out?
So it's right here. It's knocking on our door. So we're talking about 1st of October. So scheme's already been rolled out for the 0 to 18-year-olds. So now we're looking at full rollout for the Riverland, Murraylands region in October.
So yes, just a few weeks away. So not long now. Now, who's eligible for the NDIS? And if you're not sure, if you're a bit confused, how do you find out whether you are or not?
Well, basically two things. If you're receiving services under the state system, it's pretty much should be automatic. Sometimes I've just heard of a case where someone's been getting support through us that were told they weren't eligible, and that was a mistake. So, like any new system, there's teething problems, and we had to support the family to go back to the NDIA and say, hang on, this is not right. This person should be eligible, and they've agreed. Look, it was a terrible mistake. So if you're receiving services, it should be pretty much automatic. You need to be under the age of 65, otherwise it's basically an aged care service, and to be an Australian citizen.
So there is a lot to get through and there is a lot to think about here, and it is a new system. So if people have any questions, if people need their questions answered about the NDIS, how can we get in contact with Community Living Australia? So
really what we've tried to do is we want people to be informed, whether they want to purchase services from us or any other organisation. We're taking on the responsibility of saying, let's support our community and people with disabilities living in their community to get really clear and good information so they know what to ask for when the NDIS knocks on their door. So basically what we've set up is a green room concept. So right now they can ring up my staff that have been trained on the NDIS and can support people around knowing what to ask for or answer their questions around what does the NDIS mean for them and how can they maximise the supports that they get to live a good life. So if they ring up 8536 5858, a local expert, one of my team, a local expert, will be available to answer their questions.
That's absolutely fantastic. Such a wonderful organisation, Community Living Australia, and well done at demystifying this and helping out people that may need their questions answered. I'll just repeat that number, 8536 5858, for any inquiries or questions that you might have. But Mark, absolutely fantastic work. Thank you so much for joining me this morning.
It's a pleasure.